I'm Corley May, and this is the Book of the Week. This week's book is The Wanderers by Kate Ormand. The Wanderers is a sort of magical realism, slightly sci-fi book about a traveling circus. It is told from the point of view of our main character, whose name is Flo, and we learn immediately that she's a member of a circus, that she is a performer, that she is nervous about her first performance, and that she is a shapeshifter. Flo explains to the readers that her circus is made up of animals who are not actually animals, but people with shape-shifting abilities. In the world of the Wanderers, shapeshifters are not safe. They are persecuted by a group of people called hunters who are out to get them for reasons unknown to the reader at first, and that eventually reveal themselves. This conflict between the shifters and the hunters is really the center of the action in this novel. After their circus is attacked, Flo and her group of fellow shifters really have to figure out what to do next after part of their community has been kidnapped, several of them have been killed, and others have just disappeared and we don't know what happened to them. The main characters that we read about in this book are Flo, who shifts into a horse for the circus, her longtime friend and love interest Jet, who shifts into a bear. There are also a set of triplets who are elephants, some girls who are tigers, some monkeys, some seals, and then the circus leadership, who are 3 elders who shift into lions. So what did I think of The Wanderers? I thought it was okay. I thought the premise was really interesting. This book sort of had the cool shape-shifting goodness of the Animorph series with the out for survival aspects of the Hunger Games. So with those two aspects, it was a really interesting read. So what didn't I like? I wished that Flo was a slightly more dynamic character. She was very sure of herself, very almost self-righteous when it came to observing the behavior of other people around her. She didn't really make a whole lot of mistakes, and she didn't really have very many flaws in her personality. And for me, that's not really a good fit. I love it when I get to read about a protagonist with flaws. I love Jo March and her temper. I loved the main character in The Thing About Jellyfish for all the mistakes that she made and that we got to watch her make. And I just felt like when it came to Flo, her path was almost a little too neat. I also wish that the romance wasn't quite so codependent. Flo really needed Jet more than I, as a middle school educator, like to see girl characters need boy characters in books. That's totally a personal preference, but it was one that kind of got in my way of enjoying this book. Those things aside, it was a good book to read. The action was intense. There were some very precarious situations. There was some good conflict and combat. And of course, it's just interesting to read about a hidden group of people who have the ability to change their shape into animals. One of the really interesting things that Kate Ormand wrote about was about how the people had to tap into their animal personalities, which were inside themselves. There's a scene where the group is out to survive and they have to shift into their animal forms to eat and find food. And Flo is disgusted as her human self by the idea of eating grass off the ground. And so Jet advises her to tap into her horse self in order to find that grass appetizing and be ready to eat it. Now, because Jet's a bear and he's traveling with another girl who's a tiger, they have to shift and actually go hunt down game and eat something that was living. And so he really has that same struggle and has to tap into his animal self to be able to do these things that animals do. So that was really interesting. And I appreciated that Kate included that perspective in her narrative. So overall, this book was fine. It was good. It wasn't the emotional home run that The Thing About Jellyfish was for me. And I think that I've read a lot of books lately that I have just loved. So it was probably time for me to read one that I just liked okay. I'd still recommend it to any of my middle school students. It's definitely a great book for anyone who was interested in the Hunger Games series or who likes that kind of sci-fi magical realism genre. I appreciated the fact that the protagonist was a female who got things done, and I think it's important for middle school students to read those perspectives, so I definitely recommend it on those grounds as well. All right, so that's it for this week's Book of the Week. Come back next week and we'll talk about another book. Till then, bye.